and we are going to be discussing all things chills, thrills, and kills. Kate and I are going to be talking about our favorite books, TV shows, and movies that are in the thriller or crime fiction genre, as well as some reading habits and other items related to how we met on Bookstagram that will fit in with this podcast. So, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope that you have fun and get totally terrified. I was thinking today,
Mm-hmm.
um, your dear friend Audra McEllier reached out to me
Yes. Good.
and had like offered me a copy of her upcoming book.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, listen, like I love and appreciate you, but like when it comes to indie authors, like I do
Mm-hmm.
not usually accept gifted copies from indie
Oh yeah.
authors because I want to support them. Like
Yeah.
your dream is to write, my dream is to read. Let's, do what we can here.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was thinking too because I ordered physical copies of both of her books. And I was thinking today, if they decided that publishing was going to move forward with getting rid of e-readers and you had to like
No.
bite the bullet and read
No is my
physical.
answer already.
You're like, but I quit reading. Goodbye,
Yeah.
Bookstagram. If you had to pick for physical copies, do you think you would be a hardcover girly or a paperback girly?
Oh, paperback 100,000 million
Hundo,
percent. Yeah.
hundo, yes.
Yeah. I love that is what I do remember, like back in school or like when I would have to not rent. What do you do? Check out books from the library, like
Mm-hmm.
a floppy paperback. That is a nice feeling. And I don't like the other thing I remember from my analog reading days is like sometimes your pinky starts to hurt when you're like keeping the hardcover open. I'm sure you have this happen more than me since you still read them.
Yeah,
But yeah, it would be paperback.
yeah. I'm definitely a paperback kind of
Yeah.
person. Like, luckily, I live very close to Canada, so I go to the Canadian
Oh
bookstore because
yeah.
they have paperbacks before they have hardcover usually.
Mm-hmm.
And except for Brittany. Brittany came in hardcover. I just picked her up.
Oh my gosh.
I'm so
That is
pumped.
pretty. I have not read
Um,
it yet.
but yeah, I'm definitely a paperback kind of person.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's Blackwell's, which is like a
Mm.
UK shop that will ship to the US for free.
Oh, nice.
So like everyone's talking about that Fourth Wing book,
Yeah, I know. I come so close to starting it and I never do.
and I'm like, I'm so curious. I don't want to have FOMO, but I know if I do wake up one day and I'm like, I need this book, like I ordered the paperback from Blackwell's. So
Nice.
I'm paperback all the way.
Yeah.
But
I was talking to Tyler about it was actually after I sent you that reel that was like extending your bookshelves. Like there's a company that like has little bookshelf extenders. And so then I was talking to Tyler about it. I was like, I don't know what I would do if I actually had all of the physical books. And then I was like, well, I guess what I would probably do is like the cool part is how you can do those swaps too. Like there are different websites where it's like you can swap books with someone who wants to read one. And I was like, that would be nice, but I'm just sold on my e-reader. And a lot of it does have to do with control of the text. I was at when I had Kimberly Giarratano on, she said at the end, she was like, oh, e-readers all the time. Like I have to make the text big. And I was like, oh my God, me too. And that is my main thing. Because you were nice and sent me my copy of Midnight is the Darkest Hour, which I conveniently don't have right next to me. But when I opened it, I was like, this text is so little. How are people reading physical books? Like, I really can't show for context, but what I'm saying is my text is big on my phone or my iPad.
yeah, nothing is rough. There are some paperbacks where like the text is like super tiny for me, like
Yeah.
Donna Tartt probably.
Mm.
Um, I have like three different versions of The Shards by Bret Easton Ellis. I
Mm-hmm.
have the hardcover, I have the paperback that just came out, and then I have the UK paperback.
Nice.
And like, I just want them to have them.
Oh
I also
yeah.
have it on my Kindle, but like, I read it on my Kindle and I read
Yeah.
faster on my Kindle. But when that
Yeah.
book came, the paperback, I was like looking at the text and I was like, Ain't no way.
Yeah.
No way. It's so
Yeah,
tiny.
it is.
Um, but yeah, I was just very curious. Very
Yeah, that
curious.
was a good one.
Um, but I was thinking this week, I got into a little bit of a creative headspace, and I was like thinking of posters I wanted to make because I've been
Mhm.
getting really good feedback lately on the posters that I put on Instagram. And
Yes.
I was like, I want to do like very creative, realistic movie posters for some books. And I was like, what about my top 5 books that I always recommend that people are like, I want these books to be seen by people and be like, immediately think of me. You know what I mean? Like, oh
Hmm.
my God, Garrett's
Yeah.
been like jumping down my throat about reading this book and whatnot.
Yeah.
So that made me think it would be really fun to do a little game of our top 5 favorite reads and like what we will always recommend to people.
Yes. I love that idea. And your posters have been very cool.
Thank you.
They have
I've been
been.
having so much fun with Canva.
I love it. Canva's
I
so cool.
I signed up for like Canva Pro.
Nice.
I'm
Nice.
like, oh my God, I'm a techie.
You
I'm a
are.
techie
You
Becky.
just joined our ranks.
Oh my God, look at me go. But yeah, so
I love that.
ladies first, hit me with your best shot.
Well, which one do I want to start with? Okay, I'll start with this one. One of the first ones I thought of is The Paradox Hotel by Rob Hart. I just love it so much. It combines so many of my favorite things. And
Hmm.
the gist of it is also he just released his cover for his next title, and I'm forgetting the name. But I'm really excited about it, even though I'm forgetting the names. Oh my god. Okay, I swear I'm really excited about it. It's not on Goodreads yet, so that didn't save me. uh, but it is about it is about assassins. And the cover is so cool that all I remember is the image and not the title.
Well,
So I
that'll
can't
bring
wait for
people
I
to
can't wait for his next whatever titled book to come out.
check him out on
Um
Instagram, and then you will.
yes. Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes too, just in case anyone
Yeah.
was dying to know.
Hmm.
Um but his book The Paradox Hotel is about a detective named January Cole. So she is stationed at a hotel that is across the street from a place where time travel ships take off, and she's part of a bureau that makes sure that nothing bad happens with time travel, that no one's using it nefariously. And she sees a dead body in one of the rooms when she's on a patrol, but the murder hasn't actually happened yet. And so she's kind of
Oh my
like
God.
in the midst of like, there's not tons of like, you don't have to think through too much about time travel, but in the midst of that is a theme. She's also trying to like figure out and solve a murder before it happens. And it's just so fun. I love the characters. I love the vibe. It's time travel and a thriller. I think he even like always quotes it as like time travel with dinosaurs because dinosaurs make it into it too. So
Oh my
it is a
God.
zany, fun little book that
Ton
like
of
it's
different
it is
things.
one that like I always like when I'm trying to figure out like what to read next. Sometimes it's one of the ones where I'm like, I want something like The Paradox Hotel. So that's why I went first with it.
Obsessed. It sounds so good.
It's really fun.
It sounds really good. And it's
Yeah.
definitely like a Kate book. Like only you could be
Yeah, it
like time
is.
travel, murder, dinosaurs, and I'm
Yes.
into
Yes.
it.
Exactly.
I love it. Um, I mean, I'm wondering if
Yeah,
this is gonna be on your list.
probably not because I also really I didn't pick ones that like are obvious that I would have picked before. I like tried to think of some other ones since I talked about some of my favorites last week too. So I think you're safe.
Okay. All of mine are books that people are like, I'm sick of hearing him talk about these.
I know. I was just trying to challenge myself.
I was like, ooh, let me find a way to squeeze these 5 books in that I can
Oh
never shut
yeah.
up about. But my first one is In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead. Um, I just love dark academia.
Yeah.
I love cold case murders. I love Ashley Winstead. I love this book. Like, I will never stop. It's one of the craziest endings I've ever read in my entire life, and I'm obsessed. It's about basically six friends who are reuniting at their college, um, 10 years after they graduated. Um, their senior year, one of their friends was murdered. Um, and Jessica Miller is our main protagonist. Um, and she just kind of wants like everyone to see like the new version of Jessica, like the person that she now is compared to the person that she was like 10 years ago. Because everything like fell apart when her best friend was murdered. And there's someone out there, dot dot dot, who is determined to find the real killer and make the guilty pay. So when all of the friends reunite, they are forced to confront what happened that night, and all of the secrets that they're all hiding from one another. So it's very much like cold case murder meets like I know what you did last summer set in college,
Mm-hmm.
and I just eat that shit up. Like it is so
Yes.
good. I love the cast. I love like there's just like so many scenes that like really pop up or pop out in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Um and the ending is bananas.
Bananas is the right word for it.
Bananas, bonkers, batshit crazy. It's
Yes.
just one of those things. Like people sometimes will be like, "Oh my God, like I read this and it was really good." And I'm like,
Yeah.
one of the most disturbing endings that I've ever read in a book is in my dreams I hold a knife.
Yeah. It
So,
is. It sticks with you.
yeah, yeah.
That's
Like,
still on my other podcast, Between the Lines. That is still my highest watched episode. And like the numbers continue to go up. And that was from like 2 years ago now.
well, I mean, she's getting
I
so
know.
popular,
I know.
and the interview is fantastic.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was fun. It was my first one. And I was very, very, very nervous. And then I was so glad I did it. So
I know she was one of my like the lives that I was like very nervous for.
yeah.
And we went live, and I think like I was like, oh, like let's keep it around like 45 minutes, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
like if we run over a little bit. And we were live on Instagram for 2 hours.
Oh my gosh. I forgot about that. Yeah,
And
that was
like
awesome.
I was like I ended well, I mean, I ended it because I was like, I don't want to take up too much of your time. But
Yeah.
if like she would have been like if it would have been like a face-to-face conversation at like
Yeah.
a restaurant or something, I would have stayed longer than two
Oh
hours. You
yeah.
know what I mean? Like
I
the
I get
conversation
that.
could have kept going.
Yes.
So she's just amazing, and
She is.
that is
We love
forever one of
her.
the books that I will take with me on an island if I'm like thrown on an island with only 5 books.
Yeah, it's going with you.
Oh yeah.
I get it. Well, I
When it
have one
comes.
that's dark academia as well. And actually, I think in that interview, Ashley told me to read The Girls Are Also Nice Here by Lori Elizabeth Flynn. Um, and so it's another thing where they're going back for a college reunion. And Ambrosia gets a note right before her 10-year reunion. It's even a 10-year reunion that says we need to talk about what we did that night. And so within going back to the reunion, she kind of has to face this relationship she had with this girl that was like just like the coolest of the cool girls, Sully. And someone wants revenge for something that they did one night. And to keep it short, that's actually really all you need to know. But the way everything comes together at the ending, at the end, was so phenomenal. And it's another one where the ending, when you were saying that for In My Dreams, I Hold a Knife, I was like, oh, yeah, that's exactly how I feel about this one. The ending sticks with you a lot because it's just not what you think going into it.
So good. I love
And
that
just
one. I
like
ate
Mean
that shit
Girls,
up.
Dark Academia vibe.
Oh my God, yeah. And even the cover,
Yes, I love the cover
I
so
love the
much.
cover. I love the cover
Yeah.
because you're like, is she gonna put lipstick on her and then stab her in the face or what?
Exactly. Exactly. Yes, this is exactly what it looks like.
Oh my God, I'm obsessed with that book. It's
I
so good.
know.
So good.
It's
I think I
amazing.
saw something on Instagram too where like her next book is like done. Like it's gonna be
Yes,
coming out.
I
Yeah.
added it on Goodreads already. It
I'll
looks
have to check it
very
out.
fun.
I just want to read like dark academia books like that forever.
Oh my gosh, I know. I feel like her next one is something in like a vineyard for some reason.
I felt like the same, like it's like a vineyard in Italy or something.
Yeah, till death do us part.
Hmm.
It does kind of look like a vineyard. After her husband drowned on his honeymoon, his body was never found. Now, a decade later, she's ready to move on. She owns a natural wine bar in Brooklyn and is engaged to a patient, supportive man named Kyle. But out of the blue, she sees him,
Wow.
Josh, her first supposedly dead husband. Is this just a hallucination from the guilt? Or is it possible that her husband never died in the first place? But there is a vineyard on the cover.
Oh
The
my
cover is so
God.
cool. Oh my
That does
gosh. And
sound
there's
really good.
now I'm seeing like the little details on this cover. If you guys end up looking at it, one, the sky kind of looks like watercolor. And I thought that was kind of the blood was just blood, but it also looks like wine droplets, is what that is. This is a
Oh my
very, very cool cover.
God.
Yeah, I'm so excited. The second this is on NetGalley, I'm coming for it.
Oh, that is a beautiful cover.
Isn't that cool? The little like
Oh my
bleeding wide
God.
wine drops.
Yeah. August. Summer.
Yeah.
It'll be the end of August though, so it'll be like, or the end of summer, I
Mhm.
mean. So it won't be too
Oh,
bad.
well, we'll definitely be talking about that one next year.
Fuck yeah, we will. Um, ugh, gorgeous.
Yeah.
Gorgeous, gorgeous. Yeah. Well,
I also interviewed her, and that was a fun interview. She's so cool.
but she seems like really cool. Like ultimate
Yeah,
cool girl. Like just like
I know. And
cool,
she like has
cool.
little kids and is just like just out there doing it, you know?
Oh my God. What a lady. Um, speaking of women that I love with all my heart, to no one's surprise ever, I'm gonna talk about the incredible hair model and fucking darkest mind, Jennifer Hillier.
Yes.
Um, Jar of Hearts, like, come on. I fucking love Jar of Hearts so much with all my heart. Um,
Talk about an
it,
ending you will not forget,
oh my God, never.
no
Well,
matter how hard you try.
I don't even know how to like word it either, but like Jar of Hearts is like three best friends, one gets murdered, one decides on going the route of being the detective to try to solve what happens to the friend. And then there is Georgina Shaw, um, who basically has like this perfect life until she is arrested for the friend's murder because they find the murdered friend's remains in her backyard, basically.
Not so subtle.
Yeah. So basically, like Geo, as she's known, goes to prison. But the thing is that makes the story really twisty is Geo's first love that all of the three friends were hanging out with when they were in high school was a notorious serial killer named Calvin James. Um, so you have like the dual timeline. Um, and basically like the fact that Geo is kind of, I don't want to say like unlikable, but like she's definitely a girl that people will not always love in the book. Like her best friend
Yeah.
was murdered. She kind of sat on it for like 15 years, I think, like
Hmm.
knowing what happened and not saying anything to anyone. She was in high school and like fell in love with a serial killer. Um, and
Not the
like
best track record.
just decided to be like, I'm gonna have like Louboutins and like run the pharmaceutical industry in Seattle.
Yes.
Um, But yeah, so there's like dual timeline, serial killer thriller, really dark, really twisted, really amazing. But the thing that I like is I love like serial killer thrillers because like the psychology just like puts me in the zone of like I wish I could go back and be a criminal psychologist.
Yes.
Um, but with this one, I just find it very interesting to read a character that has a personal connection to the serial killer.
Mm-hmm.
The dual timeline, um, there's something in this one in which like people start dying again in the present time.
Mm.
And I always think it's really interesting where they're like, this serial killer operated 20 years ago, and now these bodies are starting to pop up. Like, did he have an accomplice? Do we have the
Right.
wrong man? Like, so there's just a lot of elements that keep the story very
Mm-hmm.
interesting to me. And Jennifer Hillier is like the nicest fucking human in the entire world. But the stuff that she writes, I'm like, it's dark in there, dude. Like there's a lot of
Yes.
stuff that she writes that are like incredibly dark, and she writes like really snarky, like bitchy
Yeah.
characters so well.
Yes.
But like she's like a Care Bear.
I
Like
know.
she's the sweetest person in the entire world.
Have you seen that? I've seen it on Instagram and TikTok now. The guy who's like authors taking their author picture after absolutely like gutting you, and it's them like
Yeah. Oh my God, yes.
I laugh
Yeah.
every single time I see it. And I think of Ashley and Jennifer.
I've never like it's like really funny too because like I read primarily female authors
Yeah.
and I
Same.
love dark and bleak shit. And
Yes.
the women who write like the darkest, most like depraved things that you will like ever read are like have like marshmallow personalities. Like they're so
Yeah.
loving and sweet and like warm and kind and like thank you so
Hmm.
much for like reading my book. And I'm like, oh, like, I loved it. And they're like, that your support means so much to me.
I know.
Like I just read a book about you like beheading 40,000 people and like
Yes.
intestines flying everywhere and you're just this
Oh
like
God.
sweet woman. So like
Yes.
that just like I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. Because I kind
Yes.
of think that like I don't know if you do you hear a weird noise?
Mm.
Okay, it's just me then. I had my heater on because
Oh
it's actually
yeah.
like freezing here, but I don't know, it's starting to like hiss. Um
Don't blow up.
there was like a time where like I would say in like the 90s, 2000s where people were like if you loved horror movies, if you loved thrillers, if you loved like books about murder and stuff,
Hmm.
that like there was like you were like stereotypically like a goth or like somebody
Oh
who's
yeah.
like, like the outcast or whatever. So
Hmm.
like meeting all of these like sweet people who love reading books about murder and then like meeting all of the sweet people who love to write books about murder
Yeah.
and like completely killing that stereotype just like makes like teenage Garrett so happy.
Yeah, I get that.
Because I'm like, see, I
Yeah,
was just ahead of my time.
you were. You just were.
Just reading Fear Street and watching Scream over and over and over again.
Just priming yourself for
setting
your
setting myself up
comfort
for
shows and
for
books.
days like today.
You're like, this is my time of year.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Which oddly enough, I did just start rewatching The Sex Lives of College Girls, which is
oh
like
yeah.
so far beyond like what I usually watch or read, but I just think
Uh-huh.
it's so fucking good. It's like the best comfort show ever.
I love that.
So that's my recommendation.
That's just a side recommendation there.
Hmm.
Um, well, I have one that is kind of similarly bloody as it gets to the
Ooh.
end. And of course, I had to talk about Kismet by Amina Akhtar, who's
Hmm.
also another little cinnamon roll who writes crazy unhinged stuff. But this one is about Ronnie, who moves from New York to Sedona, This also was one of those books, I forgot about that until just now, that made me like research the place that it was taking place and like actually made me want to go there like for like 3 months. Like Sedona and like the pretty things in it were my personality. So that happened as well. But she moves to Arizona with her friend Marley, who is like this like over the top fitness slash all the things that you think of when people have like capitalized on something and turned it into a beauty or wellness person. That's who Marley is basically. So Ronnie follows her out there. And basically people start getting murdered in Sedona, and Ronnie doesn't know if she should have made the move that she made. But when I read it back, whenever I read it, I don't know why I'm losing my words. It's been compared to Nine Perfect Strangers meets a Jordan Peele movie, which is such a great description. And she definitely has that same like satirical voice as Jordan Peele. So that was another thing that was really fun about it. But basically the like suspense and like unease just like keeps building and building and building the whole time, while also making fun of a lot of what we've done with wellness culture while calling it wellness. And it's really not making us well. So it has all of my
Yeah.
favorite things: satire, and it's a thriller.
That's kind of like I see all these people post about like moon water.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm
Same.
like, oh my God, like I wonder what that because so my experience, like the wellness community is like around me, we have like a wellness cafe
Mm,
and they sell like rocks and like the stones and stuff, but
yeah.
like their drinks are like botanical lemonades or botanical
Mm,
lattes. They have drinks there, but like they're like flavored, like
yeah.
for whatever, like every flavor is for like a different thing. My nose is so
Hmm.
itchy.
Same.
And they make
I
their own
keep itching my
teas,
chin.
and I just don't know why my nose is so itchy. But they make their own teas and everything. But like, like when I go there and I pay more for something than I would at like Dunkin' or Starbucks, like I'm fine with
Yeah.
it because it's like it's a small business and they're like it tastes good,
Yeah.
bottom
Yes.
line. But when I read
Yes.
about moon water, I was like, oh my God, people are selling moon water. Like that just sounds like I
Yeah.
just like picture something that like just like tastes so refreshing. And then I found out it was just like water that like sat out
Hard.
during a full
Yeah.
moon.
Yeah.
And I'm
Just
like,
charged under the moon.
yeah. And I'm like, I would have been
And
so
even if
duped and I
you
would have been
really
so pissed.
believe in the power of the moon, you can make it yourself. You set it out under
Yeah.
the moon.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I mean, I love my little wellness cafe because everything tastes really good. But
Yeah.
if they were like, we set this water out by the moon for you and didn't add any flavor to it, I would be like, oh,
No.
well,
I'll get something with flavor in it.
yeah, I would like rose lemonade, please. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank
So
you.
yeah, that's really funny too, because I do know exactly what you mean, where there's been like a lot of like things in like the satire genre that are
Hmm.
like about the wellness community and some of
Yes.
how like ridiculous it has gotten.
Yeah, it has.
But, so yeah. Um I don't know if I have a segue for that one,
Unless your
but
Kismet is one of yours.
I stuck to thrillers with this because if I
Oh,
got
nice.
started on male romances, this would have been like a 10 episode season
I believe it.
because there's one that I was like, oh, I really want to talk about that book, but it's just not
Yeah.
gonna fit. Um, well, I guess okay, so one called Please See Us by Caitlin Mullen.
Hmm.
Um, and it kind of eliminates the stereotypes with clairvoyance.
Yeah.
And I guess, you go in, so this one takes place in Atlantic City, basically. There's a young woman named Clara who is clairvoyant. And then there's also a young woman named Lily, who is an ex Soho Art Gallery girl who is basically working at the casino spa. Um, and she's just kind of there for like a fresh start. Um, the boardwalk is busy, like the casino's popping. And basically these two come together because there is a man hunting women in Atlantic City, and behind a creepy motel in a marsh lie the dead bodies of these Jane Does that he's killed. Um, but the thing that I really enjoyed about this is like when you start the book, like you hear about the clairvoyant on the that works on the boardwalk, and you're like, okay, like hokey hokey, like there's some sort of trick, or like everything's made up, or it's like one of those things where they're like, oh, if you see like a woman with a ring on, like let her know she's like surrounded by love. And
Hmm.
but then like Clara actually really is clairvoyant. So like you kind of see that contrast between like her just like doing things for money with the clairvoyance and like the actual things that she cannot control with it.
Hmm.
um it was just so good, and it's so dark, and it's so like
The face
devastating,
you
and
just made was
like
devastated.
I was just like, it's so
You're
sad.
like,
There's
oh my
like
god.
so many like disturbing things in it, but it's just so good. And you get like interwoven chapters that feature the Jane Does. So they're not just like a dead woman whose crime you're trying to solve. Like it's like,
Mm.
this is why this woman ended up in Atlantic City. This is why this woman ended up in this marsh. Like this is, like kind of their backstory.
Yeah.
To put like, some,
That always makes it heavier, even when you like
yeah,
sometimes in like third person books where you are following multiple characters and like one of them you're like, I think I'm gonna be here for this character's death. You're like, oh boy. And then you're like preparing yourself the whole time.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's just like, I don't know. I mean, it's really like, I think with this one, like it's kind of like sometimes you read about a character and it's like a Amy Dunn, like the beautiful like housewife who da 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 da, and like people are like, I can't believe this happened. And then there's kind of like the woman that people will like be like, I I saw this coming because she
Mm-hmm.
had like a high risk lifestyle, and like she had like a rough upbringing, and it's like they're still like human beings, whether you had a rough upbringing or not, or an at-risk
Yeah.
lifestyle. So she really like brought a lot of like, you know, harrowing emotions with the characters to show that like
Mm-hmm.
it could be anyone basically to end
Yeah.
up in that position.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, it's just really good. It's really good. It's one of my favorite books in the entire world, and I just think about it far far more often than like I probably should. Like I'm just like,
It's your
well,
Roman
that
Empire.
it's my Roman Empire. I just like think of it and I'm like, should I read that again? Am I emotionally ready? Or like I'll just be like, I'll see like, because there's blades of grass on like the cover.
Yeah.
So I'll just like see grass and be like, I'll think of Please See Us and be like, well, that book's really fucking sad.
Am I in a place to read it right now? Maybe.
Yeah,
I
yeah. I
bought it
don't
a
think
while ago. It's just chilling there.
I think it sets itself apart from what a lot of people read in a thriller,
Mm.
to the point that you would be like every detail in the book really just like is perfect. So I think that you
Mm.
could read it and be like, this is just so fucking
That's
unique
kind of what I thought.
and so well written that I think you would like it.
Yeah. I need to bump it up.
When you pick it up, I'll read it with you.
I might do it next. But
Okay.
I think I still have like 300 pages left of Blood Sisters, so it'll
Enjoy
be after
them.
that. Oh my gosh, I love it so much.
So
I
good.
hate that like there's just some stuff going on where I keep falling asleep more frequently. And I hate it because I'm like trying to read this book and then I'm like, God damn it, I fell asleep again. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
but
it's good.
maybe I'll do that one next.
Yeah, I think you'd really like
Um,
it.
I think so too. I don't have a segue, but um, I was thinking of one that I read so long ago. But like it's always stuck with me. and it's Sometimes I Lie by Alice Feeney. Obviously, we're big Alice Feeney fans over here, no surprise. But this one that came out in 2017 is about a woman named Amber, and she doesn't wake up necessarily, but like she's in a coma. She comes to herself. Why can't I describe this? Basically, she's paralyzed and has thoughts, but like she's not awake. And the only things that she knows is that she's in a coma, her husband doesn't love her anymore, and sometimes she lies. Those are the three things she knows about herself. So basically she can't do anything, and she doesn't remember what got her into the hospital. She has no clue how that happened. And so you bounce back and forth between the past and her paralyzed self as you try to figure out how she even got there. And it's a really good psychological thriller, like especially the parts where you're like stuck in her mind with her, not able to do anything. Like it's just a really intense, fun thriller that has, of course, a crazy ending. And I always think about it as one of my favorites of all time, but I don't talk about it as much.
I think I just saw an orb float behind me.
Like a ghost orb.
I think so. We'll have to like
Damn.
watch back when you edit.
I was like staring at your eyes. So I don't know.
Oh my God.
But I'll definitely
Why am
look.
I blushing when you said that? God.
I have that effect. I get it. I get it.
It's the hair.
You want to know an embarrassing fact? Because why not? Why don't people want to know this? Tyler last weekend was like needing to get out of the house, and he hadn't seen the Air Tour, so we went and saw it on Friday, I think. But like, this is the second time I've seen it. When the freaking intro to Reputation starts, I don't know how to explain how much energy builds in my body. I was flushed, just like she hadn't even started singing it. It was just those intro lines to Are You Ready for It? And I'm like, I'm blushing right now about Reputation.
Oh my God, I love it.
So we can't control our blushing. Sometimes it just happens.
No.
But I was literally like, I'm about to combust in this seat. I will say we went to a theater that, bless you.
Thank you. Fucking disaster over
You
here.
sneezed a whole headphone out. We went to one of the theaters that is Dolby surround sound, and so it
Okay.
is like you actually have 28 different speakers in different positions. Totally worth it. Like both of us left and we're like, could everyone release their concert movies like this so that like we could go see concerts we love in theaters? So this is me
That would be
hoping that
fun.
like Eminem releases one specifically. But yeah, that's my tangent.
You know, when I was a teenager,
Mm-hmm.
it was very popular for people to release DVDs of their tours.
Yeah.
I had the stripped one by Christina Aguilera, and I had
Nice.
the Destiny's Child like farewell tour.
Yeah.
And I would like watch them all the time. I think it's dust. It's not an orb. I think it's like
Oh, it
dust
catches the
coming in
light.
front of my camera.
Yeah, I've had that happen before. But yeah,
I'm
that's
starting
cool.
to try to get into paranormal. So I was like, oh my God, maybe it's a ghost who's gonna want to like in my
What are
sleep
you
tonight.
trying to did you like read something with it in it, or are you just trying to like get into it in general?
I am well, I read Simone St. James. Please See
Mm.
Us has a little bit of paranormal in it, but it's
Mm.
like very like believable, like Simone St. James does. But I'm
Mm.
actually like adding a lot of male paranormal romances to my wish
Ooh,
list. So I'm like
nice.
gonna get like spooky dick.
Spooky dick. I'm fucking here for it.
So yeah. Um Speaking of spooky dicks,
Nice.
here is my man Paul
Oh yeah.
and Rebecca of The Woman Inside. It just reminds me of one of my favorite movies in the entire world. I can't say the name of the movie because I don't want people to be like, does the book end the same? And it kind of does.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it is about a couple who like basically, fell in love. Like Rebecca didn't know that love like this could exist until she met Paul, and he's like charismatic, and I just fucking love him. And I just know Paul throws down in the bed. Like, let me tell you why. He's like one of my like
A spooky
favorite,
dick.
like literary crush is fucking Paul. Anyway, so they're like obsessed with each other. They fall in love, and then 20 years later, all of a sudden, Paul and Rebecca are like fucked up in their marriage because there's been so many secrets. Rebecca has an opioid addiction. Paul is cheating on Rebecca, and his mistress is stalking them, as most
Mistresses.
mistresses do. Um, And then basically Rebecca like kind of ends up finding some things where she's like, this motherfucker is planning on starting a new life with his mistress and like leaving me in the dust, and mama's not having it. So even though her opiate addiction is like getting a little out of control, she's like, I'm gonna get a fucking plan to pay this bastard back. And it's kind of like the dual perspective, but like also like one of those situations where it's like the most complex and unique domestic suspense book that I've ever read. Um, and you can kind of see where like one character might be on track with what they think is going on, but like another one might be like, you are so far wrong, it's ridiculous. And then like it kind of like flops as well,
That's
or
what's so
flips,
fun about it.
flip-flops.
Flip
But
flops.
yeah, I just, especially when it comes to like a psychological thriller and domestic suspense, I love seeing believable. If it's believable, it's good, and if it's not, it's annoying. But like when
Yeah.
if two characters could just communicate with each other,
Oh.
and the way that they did it, like you believe why these two don't want to communicate with each other, you know what I mean? Like other times it's
Yes.
like, well, he left for work 10 minutes earlier and I didn't get to tell him that like there's a knife
Yeah.
under my pillow. And like with this, like you just like can kind of see why they like their communication is not great. And I just think it's like one of the best and most cinematic and perfect books I've ever read in my entire life. And I fucking love E.G. Scott.
Yes. They're the best.
They
I
are the
still remember how
best.
fun that interview was.
Well, that's like my thing is like I like when it comes to like writing duos, I'm like, that's really cool that like two people can write a book
I
together. Like I've
know.
always found it fascinating.
Too.
But when we like interviewed them and they like explained to me yet again that they kind of did a cat and mouse game with one another where they were
Yes.
like, I'm gonna send this chapter, and like the other one would read it and be like, fuck you, man. Like I have to go, like I have to
Yes.
follow up with this. Like them playing a cat and mouse game with each other while they're playing a cat and mouse game with their readers, why there's a cat and mouse game with the characters. I'm like, this
Yes.
is just like trifecta of people
Yeah.
emotionally manipulating each other. And I
Yeah.
am here to be emotionally manipulated
Yes.
into any like cult that E.G. Scott wants me to be in.
Yes.
They could sell me moon water.
There you go. They're the people who could do it.
They could get me to join a cult. They could get me to help them hide a body. They could get me to buy moon water. E.G. Scott is where it's fucking at with me. Let me tell you what. They could convince me of anything.
I feel like Greg's just gonna be carrying out buckets of water tomorrow night. And you'd be like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Don't worry about it."
One
I
member of
found
the
a
cult.
I found a lucrative option.
Yeah, right. Greg,
Oh
I will
yeah.
Venmo you if you
Yeah.
make me moon water.
Yeah, it's when you were talking about how like the perspective shift is what matters so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of my favorite storytelling techniques. It's something that I want to write someday. Is something like where really you actually pulled off like his side, her side, and the truth. So you like
Yeah.
actually like neither of them are even ever right. And it's so impressive when you like really pull that off, when you can like write events that truly can be, because you have to be able to create events that can be interpreted different ways, so many different ways, and then like still use
Yeah.
that for like a plot. So cool. It's the best.
Yeah. And I think it like kind of like I've always wanted to write like a psychological thriller with two like two POVs, in the
Mm-hmm.
sense of like one chapter you like love one character and then like the next
Yes.
chapter you like hate them, and
Yep.
like just reading it like kind of like siding with each one and then kind of getting to
Mm-hmm.
the end and being like they both manipulated me and fucked me over.
Yes. Like The
Oh, yes.
Affair. It's so much like The Affair. And
Yes.
then Shameless actually does it really well, just not in a thriller version where like sometimes you're so on someone's team and then like you have like multiple scenes with another person and you're like, damn it, I get where they're coming from.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally see that.
Mm-hmm.
100%.
Yeah. I love it.
Me too.
Well, I don't really have a segue. And also the synopsis for this one is so long. It's Some Choose Darkness by Charlie Donnelly.
Hmm.
One, because I love Charlie, but also I love Rory and Lane. It's part of a series. Um, it's also been a while since I read it, so you don't want me to try to completely summarize it myself. But Rory Moore is a forensic reconstructionist, basically reconstructs crime scenes with what's left over. And her dad just died recently, and she's like cleaning out his law office when she gets a call that basically brings her into a decades old case from 1979 when 5 women went missing in Chicago. And the police at the time called the predator the thief, but he left like absolutely no evidence behind until they received a package from a mysterious woman named Angela Mitchell, whose special investigation skills helped her lead to his identity. But before they could talk to her, that woman disappears, and 40 years later the thief is about to be paroled for Angela's murder, the only crime the DA could pin on him. So, as a former client of her father's, Rory now is reluctantly involved with the killer. And he continues to say that he didn't kill Angela. So she starts reconstructing Angela's last days. Another killer emerges from the shadows, and they're replicating the murders from 1979. So she has to put together a lot of things that have happened over the course of 40 years to stop what's happening. And it's just so good. There, oh, I love is that it is reflective. Oh my gosh, that is so cool. So
Yeah.
Gare has a reflective version of the cover. I can't think of the word that.
I think it's reflective and like probably now too.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe only the hardcover, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I love this cover. It's my favorite cover of his.
Yeah.
And this is my favorite. Well,
Yeah, it's so
it's my
dark.
it's my second favorite.
Yeah, it's so
I can
dark.
never decide between that one and The Girl Who Was Taken. They're like
Yeah,
tied.
I
But
know.
it's incredible.
Yeah. I love Rory so much. Is it just two, right? Yeah. The
Hmm.
Suicide House is the next one. I loved that one too, but it's really dark and creepy and like really gets into the mind of some creepy killers, and
Yeah, he's so insanely talented.
Rory is a little on the spectrum. So
Hmm.
I identified with a lot a lot of parts of her character. And it's always like fun
So
and
good.
reassuring seeing it in a character.
Especially
You're
when
like,
it's like
oh, it is
well
adorable.
represented.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, my last pick has a very long synopsis.
Oh, so we saved our long ones. Oh
And it takes place about a serial killer in the 70s.
no shit, you're right.
So, but I know everything about Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll. So,
Yeah.
basically, if you have been ignoring me for the last like 5 or 6 months, Bright Young Women is the story that is loosely based on the Ted Bundy killings, in which Jessica Knoll does an amazing job of creating the all-American sex killer who is responsible for missing and murdered women throughout the Pacific Northwest. Um, and then we meet a woman named Pamela Shoemaker, who is the president of her sorority in Tallahassee, Florida. And they're getting ready for just like what they think is like a normal night of, sorority fun party stuff. And two of her sorority sisters are murdered and two are maimed by the what she believes is the all-American sex killer. um from there, Pamela, is obviously dealing with PTSD from surviving the attack. And she meets a woman named Tina Cannon, who was in the Pacific Northwest, and her close friend Ruth vanished. And she thinks that the all American sex killer is not only the man who took her friend, but also the man who attacked the sorority house in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just incredibly devastating and very bleak. And Jessica Knoll does an amazing job of really showing who the victims were instead of focusing on the killer. There's like been a lot of things about how Ted Bundy was like this charismatic, like good looking man, and then like on
Yeah.
court records, like people are said to have seen him picking his nose in court, and like how
Right.
he like had to like lie to get into like law school and all of this other stuff. So
Yeah.
her writing a book that focuses more on the women and the victims of a serial killer compared to like everybody knowing his name and face
Mm-hmm.
was just like utterly brilliant. And I think she did a fantastic job with the book. And it's one of those stories that I just could read over and over and over again because her writing is just
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah. And it's bleak, so
It's fucking
it's
so
a
bleak.
comfort one for you.
Yeah, it is so bleak. And I'm like, oh my God, it's amazing. I could read it over and over again. But I love having my heart ripped to shreds. What can I say?
Yeah. Yeah. It's just your thing.
It is. I don't know what happened. I'm trying to like think of like if there was like a certain, you know what it is? It's like I think some of the movies that I love and the movies that I
Mm,
watch, like Cruel Intentions, The War of the
yeah.
Roses, like I Know What You Did Last Summer, I think is one of the most depressing movies in the entire world because you're like following four teenagers who are like, someone's after me and I don't know how to like get help from like an
Yeah.
actual adult.
Right.
But yeah, like there's just like a lot of things that I think like bleakness just
It just works for
speaks
you.
to my soul more than
I
other
get it.
genres, I guess.
It's the way revenge speaks to me.
Yeah, it is. Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yep.
yeah.
You like bleak. I
Bleak,
like revenge.
yeah, bleakness to me is like female rage for you.
Yeah, definitely that
Yes,
too.
100%.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Speaking of female rage, Fair Play on Netflix is a really, really, really fantastic movie about female rage. And the gist of it is this couple who work together, gender politics. I'm keeping it as spoiler free as possible because it's very cool
Hmm.
how they relay information to you.
Okay.
Gender politics basically turns a relationship that's just like a Wall Street day trader company relationship into a thriller. So that's all I'm gonna say. Because the way they reveal everything is really clever. I was really obsessed with how it's produced. It's not like a lot of movies that you could really compare it to, but like for I really in kind of an indie film way, it's like really impressive for what it does. So that's my blurb.
Yeah, I want to check it out.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
the guy's pretty cute, so might keep your attention.
My God, I'm rewatching The Sex Lives of College Girls because it's just amazing.
Yeah,
Um, Gavin Leatherwood in it is just such a dreamboat,
yeah,
and I love his character so much. But
yeah,
there's actually a couple of guys that I have a crush on in that show.
yeah. Has it ended or is it still going?
It's still going, but I think with the writer strike, it's like the third
Right.
season's going to be delayed, but I don't know how much farther
Nice.
it's going to go after that.
Yeah.
Um, I would say like I would love to see it do 4 seasons
Hmm.
for like each year of college,
Yeah.
but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well,
Because HBO is known to start like really fantastic shows and then just like not finish them,
yeah.
and it's like you
Netflix
guys
had
know
a
what's
couple
going
of
on.
those.
Well, they know
I
what's
know.
going on. You know what I mean? Like they know that like this is like okay, like if season 3 is like if there's a possibility that season 3 is going to
Hmm.
be the last, then like end it how
Where
you
it
would end
can
the
be
show.
okay.
Yes. And if you were like,
Hmm.
no, like the viewings and like the ratings and everything like that are so good that like
Yeah.
we know there'll be another one, fine, end it on a cliffhanger if you want to. But
Right.
like,
I agree. Yeah. There's one on Netflix that was like that, like shattered me. I can't remember what it was called. I feel like it was something like Sense8. That's what it was called.
oh yes, I've heard that.
I just had to hiss like a snake to get
Did
there.
they do a movie?
I maybe they did. And maybe I was so heartbroken by that point that I didn't watch it. Season 2. I don't know. Looks like they're just 2 seasons.
Bummer.
Yeah.
They did that with Looking. It's like a show
Oh
about like a
yeah.
bunch of gay men in San Francisco. And they did 2 seasons and then like canceled it. And like I guess like people were like so pissed off, myself included, that they ended up doing
Yeah.
like a movie to kind of wrap up everyone's
Oh yeah.
storyline.
At least they did
So
that.
yeah. Otherwise I would have been pissed.
I
But
know.
so yeah,
Yeah.
all the things we love.
These are our books and now a couple of TV shows that we just always recommend.
Yeah.